I'm Liz Larson.
And I'm Bill McKenna.
And together, we created the Cognomovement system. And we'd like to welcome you to the New Life Perspectives radio show,
where we're going to be sharing with you tools, tips, and ideas that are going to change your life.
Hello, hello, in UK Health Radio Land. I'm Liz Larson, and I'm here with my friend,
Bill McKenna.
Hey, Bill McKenna.
Hi.
And both of us sound funky today because we have been under the weather. Weirdly, we live nowhere close to each other, but, every so often, no matter how much work you do, some little thing gets you, and that's what happens. So we're going to sound froggy today. But we are really, really fortunate because we have a good friend of ours here who's going to do most of the talking. And that is Dr. Bradley Nelson of the Emotion Code. He's been on before. We're so grateful to have him on again. Hi, Brad. Welcome to the show.
Well, hi, Liz and Bill. It's great to be here with the both of you. Thanks for having me on.
Gosh, we just love it. And we asked you off camera to maybe share with us some things today that we've been talking about a lot as well. And that's miracles, or what seems like miracles. Stories that happen because of your work that maybe might even be a little bit unexplainable, but are certainly wonderful. So we know you have many. What's the first one you want to share with everybody?
Well, I'll tell you, I think one of my favorite stories is from a woman in Italy. And she wrote in and she said, for years, my marriage ran badly, and then I got a new husband. And I remember reading this and thinking, oh, she got divorced, got remarried. But no, she said what she did is she hired an emotion code practitioner in Budapest, worked on her husband remotely, and removed the emotional baggage that was wrapped around his heart, which we call the heart wall. She said, it's like I got a brand new husband. He's so loving and so kind, and just really shifted things dramatically. That's kind of miraculous. Here's another one that's kind of fun. This is from a woman named Suzanne in a town I cannot pronounce in Germany. She said, my neighbor had very severe pain in her hip and could barely climb the stairs. I offered my help. She agreed, although she didn't think much of it. Since I prefer to work remotely, I did the emotion code session from home. So you can do that with the emotion code. It's energy medicine. Energy knows no barriers of distance. She said, when I had just released 3 trapped emotions, she wrote to me that she had almost no pain anymore, even though I hadn't even finished the session. So anyway, that's kind of fun.
Bradley, oh my gosh, these stories, your phone's going to be ringing off the hook, with this. Every wife in the world is going to be like, hey, wait a second. Wait, no, what's a website there now? How do we hire one of these people? So Bradley, what, because, this show is global and it's expanded quite a bit. The platform has exponentially grown at UK Health Radio. And so we've got all kinds of people out there that, maybe it's their first time listening to us, and maybe it's the first time they're seeing us together on our show, right? We've had you on a few times before, but for the benefit of the audience, what is the emotion code? How did it come about? What is that? What is that?
Well, what the emotion code is, first of all, it's a book that looks like this, okay, the hardcover version. And so it's a book by this name. It's also a method. The emotion code method is just a simple way of tapping into the subconscious mind and finding out what emotional baggage you have. And that might sound kind of strange. Let me break that down for you. First of all, if you look at your hand, you've seen that hand before, but imagine putting that hand under an extremely powerful microscope and then zooming in more and more and more. I mean, eventually you'd be looking at the cells that make up your hand, and those don't really look anything like your hand. If you keep zooming in, you'd zoom in and you'd see the organelles, the components that make up the cells. And then if you keep zooming in, eventually you'd be looking at a molecule, maybe like a molecule of DNA. And if you keep zooming in even more, eventually you might find yourself looking at a single individual atom. And if you were to look inside the atom, you'd see there's really nothing in there. It's just empty space and some infinitesimally tiny energies that are zipping around at the speed of light. And so our reality, who we really are, is really interesting, because we have this view of who we are. We see our face in the mirror. We don't see a swirling cloud of energy, but that's really who we are. We really are energy. In fact, everything in the universe that we know of is made of nothing but energy. And if you could remove all the empty space from in between all those atoms and everybody's bodies, you could put everybody in the world into a box the size of a sugar cube, and there'd be room for more people, right? So it's really pretty interesting that that is what we are. We're beings of pure energy. So when you're feeling an intense emotion, sometimes what happens is the energy of that emotion, because everything is energy, including emotions, sometimes that energy can become stuck or trapped in the body. And we refer to that as a trapped emotion, literally emotional baggage. And so when we talk about emotional baggage, we're talking about something that is actually real, even though we may not realize it. And when I was in practice, I practiced as a holistic physician, a chiropractic physician, for roughly about 20 years. And what I found was, as time went on, that all of my patients, no matter how young they were, no matter how old they were, no matter what they were suffering from, whether it was some kind of a physical problem or mental or emotional issue, they all had something in common, and that was their emotional baggage. And emotional baggage is, again, these energies. Now, the subconscious mind, you see, we all have two minds. We've got a conscious mind, which is where we live and where we do interviews and we watch shows and interviews and things, and we take our tests, we live our jobs, have our relationships, and so on. But when we go to sleep at night, the conscious mind shuts off and the subconscious mind takes over. And the subconscious mind is this vast, incredibly powerful computer that each one of us has within us. And so that subconscious mind knows exactly what is really wrong with us and what we really need. So when I was in practice, what I found is that I could ask questions of a person's subconscious mind, and I could get answers not through their conscious mind, not vocally, but through muscle testing. I found that if I asked a question of a person, their arm would stay strong if the subconscious mind was answering yes, and if it was answering no, their arm would go weak. And so I found that I could ask questions and get answers about things, and that's how I started to find that that emotional baggage was the single biggest common denominator for all my patients, no matter what they were suffering from. It was an amazing thing. 90% of all the physical pain that people have is due to emotional baggage. And people are finding that out now. And they're finding out what I found out, that trapped emotional energies are a component of every disease process that we suffer from as human beings. So you can do everything else right. If you've been diagnosed with some disease that's going to kill you, you might do everything else right. You might take all the right nutrition and meditate and do all kinds of things. But if you are missing the emotional baggage that is driving that disease in part, then you may not get over that disease at all. And so removing that emotional baggage can be just a huge piece of the puzzle in getting well, in getting out of pain, in getting rid of things like depression and anxiety and phobias and panic attacks and PTSD and eating disorders and self-sabotage and infertility and asthma and digestive disorders and all kinds of physical pain. So as we were talking about a little bit before we started, that's really what's driving this global phenomenon of the emotion code, is that it's so easy. People try it and they realize, oh my gosh, this actually works. It's crazy, but it works. And so that's how it's spreading.
So you get to see and hear these stories from all around the world, but probably every day in the same way that we do. And ever so often, there's one that really gets us. Is there one that really personally moved you that really stands out?
Well, let's see here. I've got one here that I can share with you. This is a good one, I think. Let's see. Oh, and that's a video. Here's one. This is a little bit long, but not too bad. This is from a woman named Tara in Idaho. She said, 2 nights ago, our dog got run over. Somehow she walked away from the accident. I sat with her for 2 hours that night, clearing, praying, and crying. I cleared trapped emotions for her, including shock and worthless. I tested that there were internal injuries. She was struggling to breathe and was in obvious pain. I used the body code over those 2 hours and cleared all sorts of structural problems. There were lung issues, bladder issues, kidney issues, rib issues, as well as others. And she said, let's see here. Each injured organ had the will to die. Now, this is some more advanced stuff that we teach in the body code. I prayed that God's will would be done and put her life in his hands. I honestly did not know if she would even be alive in the morning. The next morning, she was alive, but not doing well. From moment to moment, I didn't know what was going to happen with her. That afternoon, I took her to the vet for an evaluation. I prepared my girls for the possibility that Lucy might be too injured to survive. When the vet did the exam, he found no evidence of internal bleeding. The x-rays showed only severe bruising of the lungs, but no broken ribs, no other internal injuries. I really do have to wonder what the vet would have found if he had examined Lucy right after the accident. I know what I did was not magic. As Dr. Brad says, I only work here. I'm so thankful once again for the blessing of the body code in our lives. It's just so interesting. There are so many amazing stories with this. Let's see here.
Well, that's an incredible one because it's about an animal.
It's about an animal, and this works with animals as well.
Right. And we know that we're not affecting the animal like with a placebo effect. The animal, as far as we know, couldn't understand that it was being worked on. Probably likely it did more than we know. But as far as most humans think, you're not going to psychoanalyze an animal. So that part's very, very telling about the fact that everything is energy, just like you were talking about, and that what was being worked on was the energy of the physical body of the animal. And maybe more than that. What would you say is being worked on? What's the function?
Well, these bodies of ours are, they're of divine origin. We are children of a loving creator, and that creator goes by different names and doesn't really matter. I don't think how we call that creator. I refer to that creator source energy as God. I believe that he is our father, and that in a very literal way, and that we really truly are all brothers and sisters. So as we're here in this world, what's happening is we're here for divine reasons. We were alive before we came here. Now we're here, we're in these physical bodies, and we're here to learn some really powerful lessons. When people die and they go to the other side, if they happen to come back, we find that if they have a life review, they're never asked what kind of a car they drove or how much money they made. It's never about that. It's always about how much love were you able to develop for your fellow beings in the world, and how much knowledge were you able to gain. And so we learn what's really important. And so illness can stop us from being able to achieve our destiny and fulfill our purposes in this life. And so that's why it truly is a sacred thing to work on these bodies. This body is a temple. Every person's body in the world is a temple that houses that spirit, that intelligence that makes them who they are. I mean, all you have to do is go to a funeral and look at somebody lying there in the casket, and you realize, wow, that's not the same person that they were yesterday. What happened? What changed? Well, that spirit has gone out of that body. And so what I found during all those years that I was in practice, I was just trying to help my patients. But I had learned that I could tap into the subconscious mind and ask questions. And so as I was doing that year after year after year, because I used to be a computer programmer back in the early 80s, which I'm dating myself, huh, Bill? But anyway, I always had a computer there. So I was always cataloging the things that I was finding on my patients. And I eventually ended up putting together this big database of all these imbalances that happen to us. And I knew that the subconscious mind within each one of us knows with a perfect understanding what those imbalances are. Now, if you look at the approach that Western medicine takes to healing, well, it's really all about addressing symptoms. Oh, you've got migraine headaches. Well, let's give you, let's see, how about this drug that's powerful enough that you won't feel the pain anymore, but you're going to start growing hair, on your nose or on your tongue or some weird thing. You're going to have some weird side effects because all drugs have side effects. They're all toxic, right? But if you stop taking the drug, the pain is still there, because pain and all these other issues that we deal with, all these symptoms, they are all like check engine lights in your car, right? You got a check engine light. If it comes on, you know that you got to take your car into a mechanic because there's something that's not right. Well, in our bodies, we have all kinds of check engine lights. We got depression and anxiety, and we've got pain, and we've got diseases that manifest, but they're all just symptoms of the true underlying causes, the true underlying problems, which lie deeper. And the work that we do with the emotion code, with the body code, is all about finding those imbalances and getting rid of those. Let me read you a story really quick. This one came up. This woman named Sherry wrote in. She said, "I've been a seeker of healing since I was 12. Having gone through childhood trauma, I decided I wanted to become a therapist. After going through classes and work with several therapists myself, I realized the problem. I knew what had happened, but no one could help me get rid of this pain. I knew I needed to eliminate these emotions in order to heal emotionally and physically, but how? I had severe scoliosis in all sections of my spine. Besides other health issues such as fibromyalgia, which is pain all over the body, scoliosis was severely limiting my physical capacity as I aged, to the degree that it was difficult to walk. I went to many doctors and specialists, but was told I would end up in a wheelchair. Then a chiropractor friend told me about the emotion code. It made sense, and I became certified and then went on to become body code certified. My spine is straightened to the degree that it was when I was in my 20s. I'm now 59. The difference is visibly evident, but it's how I feel that really changed me. I'm not plagued by the past. I feel free, and my body is free and healthier than it's been for decades." Well, you could call that a miracle. I mean, really, the great science fiction writer Arthur C. Clarke wrote that any sufficiently advanced technology will be viewed as magic, right? And the emotion code and the body code, they can be viewed as being magical, and the results are often magical, but it's really just a very advanced technology. What we're doing is we're tapping into that internal computer, the subconscious, asking questions, finding out what those imbalances are, and fixing the imbalances. And since the imbalances are what are driving the symptoms, mental, emotional, physical, when you remove those underlying reasons, then the symptoms can just go away. That's how this works.
Amazing. So we've run up against our break. Let's hear some words from the UK Health Radio. And then when we get back, let's dive in a little bit to the body code, which is your brand new book. UK Health Radio, take it away.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
And we're back. So you were talking about an amazing story where someone's scoliosis was reversed, which really, really does feel like a miracle or magic, because in mainstream Western medicine, that's not really possible. And I think that's how we describe things as miracles and magic, because it doesn't seem probable on the surface that it would change. We know, and you know, that it is probable if you have the technology. So it sounds like you've expanded the emotion code into the body code. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. Well, the emotion code, the reason why I wrote this book, The Emotion Code, and published it first was because so much of our trouble, 80% of all of our symptoms, are actually being triggered by, in whole or in part, by emotional baggage. And I knew that if people could start to remove their own emotional baggage, or remove the emotional baggage from their friends and their family members and loved ones, it was going to work. They were going to see amazing results. And of course, that's happening. Well, during the years that I was in practice, what I found was that there are really 6 different categories of imbalances that cause our problems. And so those categories are things like pathogens, like infections that get into the body. There are things like nutritional deficiencies. There are things like toxins that get into the body. There are misalignments. They are energy imbalances, things that get stuck in the body like emotions or like traumas, things like that. And imbalances of the circuitry and the systems of the body. And so during the last 10 years that I was in practice, most of the people that I saw had been told there was really no hope for them at all, no help for them available at all, because Western medicine couldn't fix them with drugs or surgery, right? Well, we all know that drugs and surgery can be really appropriate at times, but that they're vastly overused, right? And so those kind of people, they would come to see me as a last resort, and I would start asking questions about what was really wrong with them. And then by finding those imbalances and addressing those, then things would start to get well. So for the last 10 years of my practice, most of the people that I saw had been told there was really no help for them, no hope for them at all. And yet the vast majority of them were able to get well by fixing those underlying imbalances. And so, so anyway, it's kind of fun. It's really a lot of fun. It's because miracles are happening all the time. In fact, here's a fun one that came in. This woman wrote in, she said, 20 years ago, I had a car accident with 2 whiplashes in a row. It was very painful. And for years, I had substantial neck problems and vertigo. The agony became worse over the years. And because I had children, I could not get any rest. Eventually, 5 years ago, my body collapsed with neuralgia, and I had to stay in bed for days. The pain was so intense that I went to see several doctors and chiropractors, but it did not help very much. Sometimes it was so excruciating that they could not even touch me. Then I heard of the emotion code, and it was like a miracle. I healed myself. Today I can play tennis, run, look after my kids, and work once again. This method saved my life. Many thanks. I want to share it with everyone who's in pain because I know how much things can improve. That was from a woman named Sabrina in Valbonne in France. So, this is all over the world, and it's really so fun. It's amazing to me that, that I have anything to do with this. But when I was in practice, I had this habit I developed this habit of asking for help. Going into the healing arts, going into chiropractic, and becoming a doctor was really an answer to prayer, a very literal answer to prayer. And I write about that experience actually in this book, the Body Code. So when I got into practice, I thought, God's gotten me into this. Maybe he'll help me. And so I developed this habit. Before I'd work on somebody, I would take a moment and I would ask for help. And it was a totally private, totally personal habit. Nobody ever knew. No one ever knew that I was saying a short prayer for them, but I was just trying to connect with that higher power and make that help accessible, because I thought I need all the help that I can get, right? And there were times when somebody would come in to see me and I didn't know how to help them. I didn't know how to approach their problem. And I would offer that silent prayer. And sometimes the information would just flood into me like an avalanche of understanding and data. And here's how to look at this and here's what to do and so on. And that didn't happen very often. I can count those times on one hand over all those years. But it helped me to understand and realize that that higher power, however you might refer to it, has nothing but love for us and is really rooting for us to succeed. But we have to ask for the help. If we ask, then we receive. And so that's what we try to teach all of our practitioners around the world. And everybody that does this work is that you'll have better results if you just ask for help, whatever it is that you believe in or can try to believe in or whatever. it helps.
You have intuitives. You have you got 10,000 intuitives globally working together to help people. I love that. And you taught them how to use that intuition. That's wonderful. I got a strange question. And this strange question is, do you see over the period of time that you've been doing this, situations where, for example, a mother has a problem, some sort of problem, and she comes in and gets worked on, and then, well, the child also had the same problem. Have you seen anything where there is that quantum relationship that gets affected?
Well, yes. I mean, if one person in a relationship gets worked on and starts getting rid of their emotional baggage, it inevitably affects everybody else. And I think it's usually for the better. Sometimes, though, if somebody's in a relationship that's really not supposed to be, or if it's abusive or something, sometimes their emotional baggage will keep them in the relationship. And when you start to remove that baggage, then sometimes people will they'll be freed to move on and find a higher path. Speaking about mothers and daughters, I got to share this story with you. There's a woman named Kimberly who wrote in. She said, I worked on a 3-year-old little girl whose mom called me in a panic. The little girl had a urinary tract infection and had been on medication for 3 days, but it wasn't helping. She wouldn't go to the bathroom because it hurt so bad and she was getting sick. Her mother was taking her back to the doctor that morning to be checked, but wanted me to do a session on her daughter to see if it would at least release some of the pain. I was finishing up with her session when I received a phone call from the mom. She asked me if I had worked on her daughter, and I said I had just finished. Then she proceeded to tell me a miraculous story. They'd been sitting in the office with the doctor. The little girl was on the table screaming in pain and refusing to go to the bathroom for a urine sample when all of a sudden, as they were discussing options of what to do about the pain, the screaming stopped and she stood up and said, Mommy, I have to go pee. The pain was gone as well as the fever and she was all better. The doctor was stunned, but the mom just knew I must have worked on her daughter. They gathered up their things, leaving the doctor baffled as to what had just happened. That's when she called me just as soon as she went out to the car. So, miracles are happening all the time, all over the world. And see, the thing is, we, when we're born into this world, I believe that we come here from that life that we lived with God. I believe we were in a place of total abundance and perfection, and we had everything we needed, but we had progressed to a point where it was time for us to come down here and take on these physical bodies and have this crazy experience where we come into this world and our minds are wiped clean. We have no memory of where we were before. All we know is we're here. And inevitably, we basically start getting lied to almost from day one, right? This is how things are done in this world, and you can't do this and you can't do that, and that's ridiculous, and this is impossible. And that's impossible too. In fact, almost everything is impossible. And so here we are, we're lied to, and we learn about all the limitations that we have. And that's how we go through life. But what's happening now that's so exciting to me is that the consciousness of the world is expanding every day at an accelerating rate. And so the way I look at it, it's like the earth is in labor and it's struggling to give birth to a whole new kind of existence in this world where people are living from this brain, the brain that's in their hearts instead of the brain that's in their heads. And so what's happening is, you look at all of the ways that human beings have been waking up to all kinds of things. Technology. And one of the interesting things that's happening right now, I think, is that people are waking up to the realization that there are some very powerful vested interests in the world that don't really want them to live, that don't really want them to be free. And And so these power structures that have had control over mankind for so many years, hundreds and thousands of years, they're now at a point where they're desperate to hold on to their power. And so if you're aware of that, then you start to look at the news differently. You start to see things differently, and you start to realize, wow, we're kind of in the end game here in some ways, as far as what's going on. But I don't think that there is any question that of how it all turns out in the end. I mean, it's all been foreseen since time out of mind. We know how the story ends in this world, and it ends really well. I think the future is so bright that I think we can't even begin to comprehend how bright it's going to be. Amazing.
You know, that's a really interesting point that you brought up. And that is almost the unmasking. Like, you know, if you're listening to this show, you know, it doesn't matter what side of anything you're on, but there's an unmasking that's going on. Things that were hidden, secrets, are coming out. Things are being revealed. And this is the nature of moving into a new dimension. There cannot be secrets in the fifth dimension. So in the fourth dimension, there's this unveiling of the secrets. And it's an exposure, a time of exposure.
Oh boy, we're in that right now, aren't we? I mean, it's just amazing, the things that are coming out and the exposure that's happening, and people are waking up, and it has to happen. It's part of our progress. We have to wake up. We have to realize that things have not really been, what would you call it? They haven't really been good in a lot of ways, but you know, but it's okay. You know, it's all part of our progress, and we're moving into a new world, and it's exciting. Can't wait, really. It's gonna be fun.
It's really true. People seem to be more open to what else is possible. Something that when they hear Bill and I speak all the time, I'm always saying is that these miracles that you're talking about, that we're talking about, are available now, where they may not have been before. You know, the technology that you're teaching, the technology that we're teaching, that hundreds and hundreds of teachers around the planet are now bringing to the forefront, are now available in a way that people can hear them and utilize them.
Yeah.
Not just believe in them, but be willing to give it a try and let go of some of that, the lie. I mean, that's a really good word, that Western medicine is the only way for any kind of healing to happen. So we've bumped up against another break. We'll hear from the UK Health Radio. And then when we get back, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the body code. And I know that you have something special for our listeners. So UK Health Radio, take it away.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
And we're back. We're talking with Dr. Brad Nelson of the Emotion Code and the Body Code about miracles, what's available on the planet now that just may not have been fully available before, and what people can do to create some of these changes in their own life. So the Emotion Code is the first book. The Body Code is the next book, and it's just about ready to be launched or come out. Yep. Tell us what's the difference?
Well, the Emotion Code is this method of finding and releasing your emotional baggage. And that's really all we talk about. We talk about in this book about how your animals have emotional baggage in many cases. And we teach you how to work on them and release that, how to do this with your kids, how inherited emotional energies are also part of your life, and you can release those. And when you release those inherited emotional energies, we get those at the moment of conception from mom or dad. When you release those, you're releasing them not only from you, but also from those ancestors. And so that's another very powerful aspect of this work. Well, the body code is the rest of the picture. And what happened was, or the rest of the body really, what happened was about a year after the Emotion Code book came out, one morning, I woke up, this was in 2008. I woke up and my mind was full of instruction. And the instruction was very clear. And it said, you need to take everything that you've learned about natural healing and put it into a self-study course anyone can learn and make it available to everyone, everywhere. And I remember thinking, wow, are you sure about this? It sounds like a lot of work. And it was. It took me a year to put together the first version of the body code. And we're now on really I think the third or fourth version of it. But it's an app you can get at the App Store and Google Play, or at our website at Discover Healing. And it's just available by subscription and not expensive. And then the book is coming out, and the book is it's going to explain the whole thing, how it works, what the logic of it is. And there are examples in here that you can use to start getting immediate results. So I mentioned before that there are really 6 different kinds of imbalances, or 6 categories of imbalances. And we talk about all of those in this book. And I've got a good picture of this, but yeah, here we go. There it is. So this is black and white. In the book in English, it's going to actually be in color. But you can see these 6 kinds of imbalances here. And so what we do is we simply ask the body questions, and we find out what the imbalance is, and we release that imbalance. Of course, the emotion code includes, the body code includes the emotion code. So the emotion code is part of the body code. It's just that the body code contains everything else. So here's a fun story about one of the components of the emotion code that's in the body code, called the heart wall. This woman named Nijol wrote, and she said, I read the emotion code and started releasing my trapped emotions. What a trip. I had many trapped emotions. Some were inherited with very emotional releases about World War II bombings, Dresden, and bombs. We were looking for this woman, I talked to her, she grew up and was a child during the war in World War II. She said, we were looking for bomb shelters with a horse pulling a carriage. The horse was shot. Mother and father were running with us away from the shooting. Our stuff, including any food we had, was gone. There were many difficulties. We experienced hunger, thirst, eating snow instead of water. I had frostbitten fingers for a long time, and I could feel pain, even in Venezuela, when my hands got cold. This is years later. My mother gave birth to a baby boy who died a week later. It was war. After some more traveling, we ended up in the American zone in one of the DP camps. An old military camp turned into a refugee camp. Then in 1948, we emigrated to Venezuela. 14 years later, we finally had the visas to come to the United States. I was 21. We landed in Florida, and my brother drove us to Chicago. It was scarier there than in Venezuela. A year later, we moved to Houston. We did not like Chicago winters. I got married at age 26 and had 2 children. After 7 years, we divorced and went through the school of hard knocks. I became a single parent. When the boys were teens, I was concerned because my older boy had a lot of anger, especially toward me. It got worse as he got older. I knew that he did not really feel that way toward me, but it was there, the anger and the rage when there was an argument. He got into yelling when he left the army. Since releasing the trapped emotions in my heart wall, this has not happened. My father and my ex were also prone to emotional outbursts before. By releasing my baggage, I also released theirs. That's a miracle. Thanks, Dr. Nelson. So there's an example. And that's that kind of thing is, of course, in both books, but there are other things in this book as well. For example, let me tell you a story. I had a patient that came into me once. She'd been hospitalized for 5 days with pain in her abdomen. They ran every test. All the tests were negative. So they finally released her from the hospital. They said, we can't find anything on you. So, you have to go. We can't help you. So she came in to see me, and her pain level was really extreme. It was like, a 10 out of 10, basically. And so I worked on her, used the body code, found some imbalances and fixed them. One of the things that I found, and the way that you use the body code is you ask questions, and the body code gives you this framework of helping you to find things. Basically, it works a lot like the emotion code. And so one of the things that I found was that she needed chromium. There's a table in the body code of all of these nutrients, minerals and things. And just like the emotion code, we use a chart that has columns and rows. And so we have charts with vitamins and minerals and things like that in here, and herbs and foods and so on. They're all part of the body code. So what showed up was that she needed chromium. And I knew that chromium was good for blood sugar and so on. And I thought, okay, well, she needs this. And I said, hey, we're out of chromium right now. We don't have any, but I think you probably should get some at some point. Your subconscious is telling us that that's what you need. Okay, fine. So she left the office. There wasn't anything else I could find to work on. So she comes in. She's the very first patient the next day. And I mean, her pain now is like an 11. It's getting worse. And I didn't know what else to do. I thought, well, she's already been to the hospital and they couldn't find anything, so I didn't know what to do. So I got the body code out again and I started testing. And out of all the thousands of possibilities, her subconscious mind took me to nutrition and lifestyle, to nutrition, to this chart of nutrients. And it wasn't in column B, it was in column A, and it was in an odd row, and row 3, and it was chromium. And it was only at that moment that I remembered, oh, wait, hey, this showed up yesterday. You know what? I said, I think your body really needs chromium. I said, I don't know why, but I want you to leave my office right now, go down the street to the health food store, buy some chromium tablets, ask for water, go ahead and take some right there, and then come back. 20 minutes later, this young, very athletic woman was literally jumping up and down in my waiting room saying, I'm fixed. I'm fixed. She said the instant that she took the chromium, the pain just vanished. And she said, she was just amazed. She said, how did that work? And I said, I have no idea. I still have no idea. I don't know how that worked. But I told her, I said, the whole point is that your subconscious mind was able to communicate through this system that that's what you needed. And why did you need it? I don't know. Maybe we'll never know. Maybe we'll never figure it out. But the point is, the important thing is that, you needed it and we were able to get you what you needed. Now think about that. What does your body need right now? Are you deficient in some vitamin or mineral? Do you have a pathogen in your body? Are you toxic in some way? There's so many amazing stories. I'll tell you one more. This happened to me many years ago, actually. I worked with a doctor who was really an amazing mentor of mine, Dr. Stan Flagg up in Kalispell, Montana. When I first got out of school, I went and worked for him for about 4 months. I just followed him around and took notes. Well, one day a woman came in who was obviously having one foot in the grave. I mean, she looked like death warmed over. She was as pale as could be and very kind of limp, in a wheelchair. And her whole family showed up with her. And she said she'd been in a wheelchair for, I think, about 3 weeks. And she'd been to doctors in the hospital. Nobody had any idea what was wrong with her. But she had no energy at all. Her body was racked with pain. And the only time she said that she felt halfway decent was when she was in a tub of really hot water. But then it took her whole family to get her out because she absolutely had no strength at all. And so Dr. Flagg, the doctor I was working with, did some testing on her. And then all of a sudden he said, have you been bitten by a spider? He was also, really intuitive, I think. And he said, have you been bitten by a spider? She thought about it for a minute. She said, well, let's see. Yeah, actually I did get bitten by a spider. It was a couple of weeks before all of this started. Do you think it has anything to do with it? And so what he did then is he worked on her using the methods that he had at the time and released that venom energetically. She was the last patient that we saw that day. It was this is 1988, right in the summer of 1988, Kalispell, Montana. So the weekend's over. I go back to work Monday morning, about 8 o'clock. I walk in and there's a woman sitting in the waiting room. And I walk over to her and I can't place her. She looks so familiar. I'm talking with her. And all of a sudden it dawns on me, this is the same woman that we saw on Friday. She was not in a wheelchair. Her whole family wasn't there with her. She, pink rosy cheeks. She looked the picture of health. and we talked about it, and we cried together. I mean, the reality of it is, see, part of this consciousness that is awakening is the knowledge of who we really are, what we really are. We're beings of pure energy. And the ultimate way to help ourselves in most cases is to treat the body for what it is, which is a being of pure energy. And so that's why for so many years, doctors and scientists have said the future of healing is energy medicine. It's energy, because that's what we are. And so, the emotion code and the body code are just these incredibly simple ways that enable anybody to do this. And so, kids can do it. In fact, we've got some great stories about children, using the emotion code. In fact, the youngest child that we know of at the time was 5 years old in Mexico City. And she would use the emotion code, she was using the body code on her mom's iPad and just touching the pictures and finding things. And then she'd bring it into her mom and she'd say, Mommy, Daddy has this. And I guess she was always right. So.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Well,
I love that.
We could talk to you for about 3.5 hours, but we've run right up against the clock here. And we wanted to make sure that you had the opportunity to give everybody the gift that you came with on this show. We always make sure everybody leaves with something they can use today. So there's a 14-day challenge.
Yeah.
So write this down, everybody. It's discoverhealing.com, discoverhealing.com/emotion-code-challenge. Will you tell everybody what that is very quickly?
Yeah, the Emotion Code Challenge is it's a 14-day program where you can actually learn how the emotion code works. It's really, really simple. It's totally free. And we send you an email every day, and there are videos that go along with this. And we teach you how the emotion code works. You don't have to know anything about it in advance. You don't have to have read the book or anything at all. And we will walk you through this and teach you how this works. And within 14 days, we think that you very likely will have experienced some fun things and maybe some nice changes, maybe some pain you've gotten rid of, or who knows what. There might be all kinds of symptoms that might have disappeared, and you might just love it. So,
and now, you mentioned a few times, and I just wanted to cover this for the audience real quick, right before we leave, is what Einstein called it, spooky action at a distance.
Yeah.
Are you saying that you could actually do this and affect somebody who's not even in the room? Is that how it worked with that child that had the big issue?
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's one of the really unique things about energy, is that it doesn't know any barriers of distance. And so we've got 10,000 certified practitioners now that are doing this all over the world with people in other countries. In fact, my wife and I were in Istanbul. I think it was in July, maybe, or August. And we did an event there. And there was a young man that came, and his name is Umar. And he came to us. He's a young guy. He's got a wife and 3 little kids. And he said, you guys, he said, you have no idea. You've completely changed my life. He told us that he became an emotion code practitioner and then a body code practitioner. And that's not expensive. I mean, we offer these courses so that people can learn how to do this if they want to do it for a living. Anybody can use the emotion code. Anybody can use the body code. You don't have to become certified just to use it on friends and family and so on. But if you want to actually do it for a living and charge people, then we want to put you through a program so we know that you know what you're doing. Anyway, that's what he did. And, I think he's making at least $25,000 a month. He does 10 to 15 sessions, body code sessions every single day, 7 days a week. And my wife told him, she said, you really should take Sundays off. It would be a good thing for you. You need a day off, at least one day off a week. But anyway, so he never talks to anyone. He told us most of his clients are in the US, and They pay him in advance over the internet, and then he works on them remotely and then sends them the email results. And he's getting all kinds of great results with people. So yeah, welcome to the 21st century. Here we are.
I love it.
So
Fantastic. All right, you
Been
guys,
fun.
thank you so much, Brad, for being here. As always, thanks for being here with us, Bill McKenna. Everybody out there in UK Health Radio land, please make sure you take advantage of Dr. Nelson's 14-day challenge. And until we see you again, be safe and be well.
Thank you both. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for being here with us on the New Life Perspective radio show. For more information or to find out more about the work that Bill and I do, please visit us at cognomovement.com or email us at info@cognomovement.com. See you again soon.